So the other day I was having a chat with my wife, and she was asking me, why does Taylor Swift feature so often in some of the videos that you've made? And I told her that there's a very, very good reason. This channel, of course, is about music, it's about guitars. And any modern musician can't really ignore Taylor Swift, whether you like her or you don't like her. And more than from a music standpoint, there is something very interesting about her from maybe a culture standpoint, maybe a business standpoint, especially a marketing standpoint. It's really fascinating that in an era when the music industry was decimated post-internet, post the peak of 1999, that a musician actually became a billionaire, quote unquote. These Forbes numbers, you can't take them very seriously, but definitely very, very, very rich. So there's something fascinating in there. And then my wife was telling me that, hey, you should probably make a video about this because you can see it from the music perspective. Having managed one of the biggest brands in the world, you can see it from a marketing perspective. You can see it from a business perspective. Maybe that perspective would be interesting to people versus people just lamenting that, oh, she's not a great musician, or, oh, she made her money, however it might be. So folks, in response to that, this is my video on what I think are the real reasons that Taylor Swift became the first musical billionaire. So hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. I'm Utkarsh, coming to you from Singapore. Now, I think the first thing we need to do when we discuss the matter of Taylor Swift is we need to divorce three separate things about her, which a lot of us sometimes combine into one. We need to look at Taylor Swift, the musician, or rather we need to look at the product, that is Taylor Swift's music, that is Taylor Swift's stage persona, that is Taylor Swift's concert. So there's the product itself. Then we have the marketing of the product, which is the marketing of Taylor Swift. And the marketing is self as well as beyond self, using both herself and other means available to her. And then there is the business aspect. Very often, if we don't, look at the world through a business or a marketing lens, we kind of think that if a product is good, it automatically becomes successful. It's kind of, if something is good, if there's a great product, it'll automatically be a sales hit and it'll make millions of dollars or whatever it might be. The reality is that a good product is often just one part of the mix of making a successful making something popular and definitely making something a successful business. These are three separate things: product, successful product or good product, successful marketing or popularity, and money-making business, successful business. These are three separate things. So let's start off with that. On Taylor Swift, the product itself, I have nothing much to say more than what people have said. There is no doubt that she's a competent musician. She's a decent songwriter, whether she's aided by a team or not. She definitely knows how to perform. She is definitely at least a reasonable musician. In my opinion, she's not anywhere close to the musicality of the all-time greats, something like the Beatles. But nonetheless, on the other side, for those who say that she can't, she's not good at all, she's just generic, I think maybe you're also doing her a disservice. So let's just agree that Taylor Swift, at the very least, is a very, very decent musical product. As are many, many, many other people out there, numerous, thousands, millions probably, maybe not millions, but definitely tens of thousands, right? So that has not been the reason why Taylor Swift has become a billionaire. Again, I use this in quotes because we don't know what her actual net worth is, but more than any other musician for sure. So then, to understand why she has succeeded in this, we need to look at the marketing and we need to look at the business. I'm going to start off with the marketing. One big part of marketing that folks don't know is that however successful your product is, or rather, what makes your product successful beyond it being a good product or beyond it having a good message is just simply how many people are exposed to your product or exposed to your message. In the case of an ad, it's how many people the ad reaches. In the case of music, it is literally how many people that music reaches. And the music industry has always known this, which is why it has always had a very, very specific method, especially in the days of record labels and having artists being part of the system, they used to get radio slots, the right radio slots, enough exposure, enough eyeballs, enough ears rather. And if you examine Taylor Swift's career, what she has done successfully right from the start is find ways and means to maximize her exposure, her reach. She started this pretty early. Her first single was named after a famous country singer. And if you look at the beginning of her career, she took every opportunity, rightfully so, as any musician should. And she was able to successfully get a lot more exposure than most would. It was very, very specific about it. A lot of artists are often very, very artistic. I'm an artist. If my music is great, it'll automatically be a big hit. And sometimes that does happen. Sometimes you have one-hit wonders, like, say, Dance Monkey, where I don't think the singer did anything particular. But more often than not, the harder you work, the more chances you take, the luckier you get. So there was definitely, and probably due to Taylor Swift's parents, I think her father has a background in investment banking or private equity. There's a very, very deliberate business-like effort in maximizing her exposure. And this manifested in terms of taking all the opportunities, but also finding ways and means that the powers that be maximize her exposure as well. This could be making sure that she's getting to know the right people or making the right impression with the right people in the beginning of her career. So she is more likely to get the radio slot. She's more likely to get that additional bit of airplay. Or it could be even later on, as you're seeing recently, where, particularly what happened with, say, the Scooter brawl, where she kind of became even though she's not really a victim in that sense, but she kind of became, this is the evil business taking advantage of the musician. She became on the righteous side of that. It's very, very smart to do that. It's called PR, public relations. People have been doing it forever. So all of this serves to just maximize exposure, get more and more resources into yourself. So that's one thing that Taylor Swift has done very well, which is to get resources to maximize her exposure. That's the first thing. So that kind of is one of the reasons why she's famous. It's like, fame begets fame. The more you keep getting exposure, the more people think you're famous, the more they're predisposed to know about you and even listen to you. Number one. Number two, what I want to talk about is an interesting thing that people don't give her enough credit for. It's really taking chances. And I have seen, I think he has taken, at the bare minimum, 2 big risks. And risks are an essential part of the business process. If you look at how private equity firms work, if you look at venture capitalists, venture capitalists is a better example probably. What you do is you invest in a little bunch of businesses, and hopefully one of them, you take a lot of risk in a way because you're investing in random startups. But sometimes one of those startups becomes a Google or an Uber or whatever it might be. Now, venture capitalists have the ability to invest in multiple little things. What Taylor Swift did is she went all in on herself, which is a big thing to do. And I see there are 2 examples. One was her pivot from country to pop. It may seem like an obvious thing in retrospect to go from a popular genre, which is country, but pop is popular all over the world, not just the United States. It may seem like an obvious switch, but it's not really an obvious switch because there is a risk. There is a risk that your core crowd, your core fans will accuse you of selling out. We'll get back to the fans point in a second. But she did that. She took an all-in risk. She went pop with, I think, the record 1989, and it worked out very well. Again, this is all bolstered with doing great marketing, great launches, maximum exposure. It was a calculated risk, but it was a risk nonetheless. The second risk was really the entire feud that she had with Scooter Braun and on her catalog. Again, this is not the conventional thing to do. She managed to turn that into a PR, marketing machine for her because of all the coverage that it got. But again, it was not the obvious thing to do. It was an unprecedented thing for a musician to do. So that's another big risk that she took. This second big risk, of course, helped with the marketing, but is a big portion of the business aspect of why she was able to, keep a larger portion of the economic value that she created compared to most musicians where other parties take big chunks of their economic contribution. So she has taken 2 or 3 big risks. But if you think about both of these things that I told you, which is maximizing exposure, controlling the narrative of the exposure in a very smart way by aligning with whatever are the macro trends happening, whether it be semi-feministic piece over there with the whole Scooter Braun thing, whether it be being the wronged new artist when Kanye West interrupted her. She was able to, use all of these things to an opportunity. And then, of course, taking the big risks. There's something that enabled her to do all of this. And that something really is her fan connection. And in that sense, that is one place where I think she was a little bit ahead of the curve. Today, the fan connection between celebrity and fan is very different from that of 25, 30 years ago. We've forgotten about it because the post-social media world has become so normal to us. We've forgotten that there is a time when a celebrity was a semi-distant, mythical figure, not really connecting directly with the fans beyond that occasional glimpse that you may get of them in the newspaper, maybe on a television program, maybe in concert or a movie or whatever that celebrity does. That direct connection through social media is now expected. It is a big part of it. Today you get things like Architectural Digest, come and check out my house. Right, you'll go and see the houses of Hollywood celebrities and they'll tell you what they keep in their bag and stuff like that. But that was not the norm. But one thing that I assess that Taylor Swift did very successfully is she had a direct connection to her fans. It started initially, I'm guessing, from the need to maximize exposure because she kept doing every small concert that she needed to. One of the examples that I recently heard on one episode of the Economist podcast is that in order to get better radio slots, she used to actually directly ask everybody in a concert to call the radio station to hear Taylor Swift. So she's already building a one-on-one. And it takes a lot of work, by the way, to do that. So she was doing that. And then later it kind of developed into, maybe it organically developed initially where she started putting Easter eggs in her albums. But essentially developed into the case where she had essentially a fairly rabid fan following where people, when you have a kind of, when you're in on something which other people are not in on, when there are secrets, Easter eggs that she puts in an album that only a few of you can detect, that makes you feel closer to the celebrity, even though you have not really met that person or really know that much about them. Because you're part of this inner circle. You are the only folks who are guessing this or guessing that or whatever it might be. So that inner circle of hers, where people feel part of her inner circle, people feel connected. It's always been human nature to make larger than life figures out of famous people. Right? I mean, Nietzsche himself said, right, God is dead and we have killed him. And what will replace God is a little scary, right? This is what Nietzsche said about 150 years ago. In the absence of people having a larger than life figure, a religious figure to believe in, when you take that away, then you still need to find some sort of symbol to believe in. And that's where a lot of today's personality cults, this goes back all the way to, Nazism, frankly, and fascism, a lot of stuff. I don't want to turn this into something else. So personality cults, especially in an age where average amount of religion goes down, is more common. And Taylor Swift was pretty much able to build a very, very large personality cult. And it's a very global personality cult because if you look at her, if you go on Spotify and see what are the places where Taylor Swift is most popular, you will see places in Asia, you will see Philippines, you will see Indonesia. These are distant people. Their lives could not be more different from Taylor Swift living in Nashville or wherever in the US that she does. The guy living in Jakarta, going in the traffic on a little two-wheeler, or the folks working in the Philippines or wherever, right? A very different life from Taylor Swift, yet they feel connected. So she's been doing that for 14, 15 years, right? And it helps that her music is targeted to, in a way is targeted to teenagers, right? So it's a very, very important time in your life. And what you connect to during your early teens, tweens, you connect to for the rest of your life. So these kind of factors kind of combine to make her really connect with her fans. And when you really connect with your fans, when you have a large rabid base and a little bit of a cult of personality behind you, what happens? You can control the narrative when something happens to you. When you take on a big business, even though you are taking on it from business perspective, the whole fight for her catalog, you are able to turn the narrative to your advantage. When you get wronged by a bigger musical figure, you are able to leverage your fans to turn the narrative to your direction. So there you go. See, the way I look at it is the big difference between Taylor Swift and another decent musician is that she has had extremely good management. For me, underlining everything that I talked about, I think it has to be her parents, it has to be her father, it has to be her extreme business approach to this entire thing, much more so than any other musician. I think that's kind of been her secret sauce. She's a decent musician, she has some good songs, don't get me wrong. But the secret sauce, the real reason she became a billionaire, has to be that very, very ruthless business attitude right from the beginning. So, folks, that was my assessment. Love to know what you think as well, and I'll see you next time.